He found a young woman abandoned on the road on Christmas Eve, pregnant and clinging to life, and what he did for her on that freezing night changed both their destinies forever. Can you imagine the courage it takes to open the doors of your home and your heart when everything you knew of love died years ago? This story took place in the rural highlands of Colorado in December 1938, when a man who had given up on living found a reason to start over. If you are watching this story right now, comment below where you are tuning in from. This interaction is crucial so that this content reaches more people. Also, leave a like if you believe that kindness still exists in this world. Now, let's get into the story. The cold bit deep into his skin that afternoon of December 23rd. Henry Vance held the reins of the wagon with calloused hands, feeling the icy wind from the Rockies cut through his heavy wool coat. At 42, he held the posture of a man carrying a weight far heavier than the sacks of supplies stacked behind him. Deep-set brown eyes, a 3-day stubble, and a wide-brimmed Stetson pulled low to protect against the glare of the winter sun. He was returning from the town of Silver Creek after buying supplies for Stone Creek Ranch, the property he had managed alone for 3 years. The dirt road wound between century-old pines and fields, buried under a fresh layer of snow. Henry knew every curve, every rock of that path. He passed through there twice a week since becoming the sole master of the ranch, the sole inhabitant of the main house, in truth. The ranch hands lived in the bunkhouses and smaller cabins scattered across the property, and he preferred it that way. Solitude was a constant companion and, in a way, comfortable. The horse slowed its pace on its own when the road began to climb. Henry didn't even need to pull the reins. Barnaby was a smart animal. He knew when to conserve his strength. It was on this slower ascent that Henry saw something unusual on the side of the road, near an old, gnarled oak that marked the curve. A dark shape against the white snow. It seemed at first like a dead animal, perhaps a stray dog, but as the wagon drew closer, the form took on human contours. Henry felt his heart accelerate. He pulled the reins hard, and Barnaby stopped immediately. The silence of the afternoon was broken only by the wind in the needles and the horse's heavy breathing. Henry climbed down from the wagon with a speed that would surprise anyone who had seen him moving slowly through life these past few years. He approached with long strides and stopped a yard away. It was a woman, young, lying on her side in the snow, knees drawn up, arms wrapped around her own body. Dark brown hair splayed out, hiding her face. A blue dress torn at the shoulder, stained with dirt, and something darker that could have been blood. Her feet were bare, scratched and blue with cold. Henry knelt beside her and touched her shoulder carefully. "Ma'am," he called out, his voice raspy from disuse. The woman didn't answer. He touched her again, this time on the neck, searching for a pulse. She was alive. The pulse beat weak, but steady. Her skin was as cold as ice. When he turned her face gently to check if she was breathing, Henry felt something tighten in his chest. She was very young, perhaps in her early 20s. A beautiful face marred by a purple bruise on the left side. A split lower lip. Closed eyes sunk into deep dark circles, and when his gaze traveled down, he saw the discreet but unmistakable swell of her belly. She was pregnant. Henry Vance was a practical man, accustomed to making quick decisions about planting, harvest, and buying cattle. But in that moment, kneeling on the side of the road with an injured, pregnant stranger in his hands, he felt lost. 3 years ago, he would have called Eleanor. His wife would have known exactly what to do. Eleanor always knew how to deal with people, with others' pain, with emergencies. He only knew how to deal with soil and livestock. But Eleanor wasn't there anymore. And this girl would die of hypothermia if she stayed on that road for another hour. The decision took form quickly. Henry lifted the woman in his arms with care, surprised by her light, almost fragile weight. She moaned softly, a sound of pain that made something move inside him, something that had been dormant for a long time. He carried her to the wagon and settled her between the sacks of flour and beans, taking off his own coat to cover her. The immediate biting cold he felt in just his shirt didn't matter. He climbed onto the wagon and snapped the reins on Barnaby for the first time in years. The horse took off at a brisk trot. Stone Creek Ranch was 40 minutes away at a normal pace, but Henry intended to make it in half that time. He looked back every minute, checking if the woman was still breathing. She remained motionless, only the slight rise and fall of her chest under the coat indicating life. Henry Vance wasn't a religious man. He had stopped attending church after Eleanor died. God had taken his wife and the son he never even got to meet. What kind of God did that? But in that moment, guiding the wagon at a dangerous speed over the rutted road, he found himself murmuring something that sounded like a prayer. "Don't let her die, not another one." The ranch appeared in the distance just as the sun began to set behind the mountains. A thick timber gate, a white fence surrounding the homestead, a large two-story house painted white with green shutters. Around it, the smaller houses for the workers, the barn, the corral, the fields stretching as far as the eye could see. 3,000 acres of fertile land that had belonged to Henry's father and his grandfather before him. He passed through the gate without closing it, shouting for help, even before stopping the wagon. "Mr. Henry, what happened?" Came running Tobias, the foreman, a man of 50 who had worked on the ranch since before Henry was born. Behind him appeared Mrs. Higgins, the cook, a robust woman of 60 with an apron that was always clean and eyes that were always attentive. Henry was already climbing down, gathering the woman into his arms again. "Found her on the old road," he explained quickly. "She's hurt and freezing. Tobias, send Quentin to fetch Dr. Ambrose now." "Now," he reinforced when he saw the foreman hesitate. "Mrs. Higgins, prepare the guest room with hot water and blankets." The cook looked at the unconscious woman, at the torn dress, at the bruised face, and understood without needing to ask. "Holy Mother," she murmured, crossing herself. "I'll get everything ready, boss." And she ran up the porch stairs with impressive speed for her age. Henry carried the woman inside the house. It had been 3 years since anyone other than him had entered the main house. The staff took care of the exterior cleaning, but he cleaned the interior himself, cooked his own meals, kept everything in silent order. The house was too big for one man. 6 bedrooms upstairs, a large parlor, a study, a spacious kitchen, all clean, all empty. He climbed the wooden staircase that creaked under his weight. The guest room was at the end of the hall, far from the master bedroom where he slept, far from the nursery that had been prepared for the baby and never used. Mrs. Higgins was already there, lighting kerosene lamps, placing heavy quilts on the bed, preparing a basin with warm water. Henry laid the woman on the bed with care. Under the yellow light of the lamps, the injuries looked worse. Besides the bruise on her face, there were scratches on her neck, on her arms. The dress was torn in a way that suggested violence. Henry felt a rage growing inside him, a sensation almost forgotten. Who would do this to a pregnant woman? Mrs. Higgins began to clean the girl's face with a damp cloth. "She needs to get out of these wet clothes or she'll catch pneumonia," she said, glancing at Henry. "The boss will have to leave, if you'll pardon the indelicacy." Henry nodded and left the room. He stood in the hallway, leaning against the wall, listening to the muffled sounds inside. Mrs. Higgins murmuring something, water being wrung out, the movement of blankets. He looked out the window at the end of the hall and saw Quentin, Tobias's youngest son, galloping off toward town. Dr. Ambrose lived 20 minutes away. If he was home, he'd arrive in less than an hour. The door opened, and Mrs. Higgins came out carrying the wet, dirty dress. Her face was grim. "She was beaten, Mr. Henry," she said in a low voice. "There are hand marks on her arms, and she's pregnant, about 4 or 5 months by the looks of it. She's malnourished, battered. God knows what this girl has been through." Henry closed his eyes. "Can you stay with her until the doctor arrives?" Mrs. Higgins nodded. "I'll make a hot broth. If she wakes up, she'll need something in her stomach." She placed a hand on Henry's arm in a motherly gesture. "You did the right thing bringing her here, sir." Henry didn't answer. He wasn't sure if he had done the right thing. He wasn't sure of anything. He only knew he couldn't have left her to die on that road. He went down to his study and poured himself a bourbon. He hadn't drunk since Eleanor's funeral, but that night he needed something to warm him from the inside. He sat in the leather armchair that had been his father's and looked around. Shelves full of books he no longer read. A desk full of ranch papers. A portrait of Eleanor on the wall, smiling in that yellow dress she liked so much. It was taken 2 months before she died. Eleanor Vance. She had been 16 years younger than him, 23 when they married, 26 when she died. Curly black hair, lively green eyes, an easy laugh. The daughter of the judge in Silver Creek, an educated and delicate girl who by some miracle had agreed to marry a widowed, grim rancher. Henry's first marriage at 35 had been a family arrangement. It lasted only 2 years before typhoid fever took his wife. There had been no love, only mutual respect. With Eleanor, it was different. Henry had fallen in love for the first time in his life at 39. She brought light to the big house, laughter to the silent hallways, life to everything. 3 years of happiness that Henry judged would be eternal, until that night in March 1935. Labor began in the morning. An experienced midwife, everything going normally according to her. But the hours passed, and the baby didn't come. Eleanor screamed in pain upstairs, while Henry paced the living room like a caged animal. He had sent for Dr. Ambrose, but he was attending an emergency at another ranch. When he finally arrived, it was too late. The baby was born still. A boy. Cord wrapped around his neck, and Eleanor bled. She bled so much that the white sheets turned red, the floor turned red, the doctor's hands turned red. Henry held her hand while life drained away. Eleanor looked at him and said, "Forgive." Forgive for what? Henry didn't understand. She wasn't to blame for anything, but those were her last words. Forgive. 3 years, 4 months, and 21 days ago. Henry knew exactly how long because every day weighed on him. He buried his wife and son in the same coffin in the town cemetery under a fine, freezing rain. He returned to the main house and didn't come out for 2 months. Tobias and Mrs. Higgins took care of everything, the ranch, the decisions, until one day Henry woke up and decided he needed to continue, not for himself, but because the ranch was a generational legacy. So he continued, woke up, worked, slept. He felt nothing anymore. He didn't want to feel. And now there was an unknown, pregnant, battered woman sleeping in the guest room. A knock on the door pulled Henry from his thoughts. Dr. Ambrose entered without waiting for an answer, carrying his usual black bag. He was a tall, thin man, in his early 60s, grey hair combed back, intelligent blue eyes behind round spectacles. He wore a dark suit, despite the hour. "Henry, Quentin told me." "Where is the girl?" "In the guest room. Mrs. Higgins is with her." The two went up in silence. The doctor entered the room, and Henry stayed outside again. 15 minutes, that felt like hours. Finally, the door opened. Dr. Ambrose came out, closing it behind him, his expression grave. "She has mild hypothermia, severe dehydration, various contusions, at least 2 ribs might be fractured. I applied a warm compress, gave her sugared water. She woke up for a few seconds, long enough to drink a little." The doctor paused. The baby still has a heartbeat. It's a miracle both are alive. Henry let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. And what needs to be done now? Keep her warm, hydrated. If she doesn't have a fever by tomorrow morning, she's past the worst of it. I'll leave some medicine and come back early tomorrow. The doctor looked at Henry with that direct way of his. Do you know who she is? No. Found her on the old road near the big oak. And she's going to stay here? Henry took seconds to answer. I can't put her back on the road. Dr. Ambrose nodded slowly. Best be careful, Henry. A woman alone, pregnant, hurt. People will talk. Let them talk. The doctor placed a hand on the rancher's shoulder. You're a good man, Henry Vance. Your wife would be proud. And he left, carrying his bag, leaving Henry alone in the hallway with those words echoing. Night fell completely. Henry ate the broth Mrs. Higgins prepared, but tasted nothing. He went up several times to check on the woman. She slept deeply, her breathing more regular now. By the light of the lamps, she looked even younger. A delicate face despite the bruises, small hands resting on the quilts. Who was she? Where did she come from? Who had done that to her? Around 10 at night, Henry was in his study when he heard a sound coming from upstairs. He ran up. The bedroom door was ajar, and there was light. Mrs. Higgins was by the bed, holding the hand of the girl who had finally woken up. Calm down, child, calm down. You're safe now. The woman looked around with wide eyes full of panic. Where am I? Where am I? Henry entered slowly, so as not to scare her further. The girl turned her face to him and shrank into the covers. No, please, no! He stopped immediately, raising his hands. I'm not going to hurt you, ma'am. My name is Henry Vance. I found you on the road and brought you to my home. You were very hurt. The woman looked at him, at Mrs. Higgins, at the room around her. Tears began to flow. He left me there, she whispered. He said I was his problem, and he left me. Who left you, ma'am? She didn't answer, just cried. Mrs. Higgins took a glass of water. Drink a little, child. You need to recover. The girl drank with trembling hands. Henry took a step closer. What is your name? She looked at him with huge brown eyes, full of pain and fear. Clara. My name is Clara Miller. Clara, Henry repeated. You need to rest. We'll talk tomorrow. You are safe here. No one will hurt you. Why are you doing this? Her voice was small, broken. You don't know me. Why did you bring me to your house? Henry didn't have an answer. Or he did, but didn't know how to put it into words. Because I couldn't leave you there, he said simply. Clara looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to understand, and then closed her eyes. The crying subsided until she fell asleep again, exhausted. Mrs. Higgins tucked the blankets around her. Poor thing, she murmured, so young and has already been through so much. Henry left the room and went to his own. He lay down dressed on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Outside, he heard the wind in the pines. Ranch sounds he knew by heart. But something had changed. There was another person in the house, someone needing him. He couldn't sleep properly. He got up several times to check on Clara. Mrs. Higgins had offered to spend the night in the room next door, in case the girl needed anything. Henry found the cook awake every time he passed the hallway. They exchanged silent glances, and he returned to his room. At 5 in the morning on December 24th, he gave up on sleeping. He went down, made coffee, went out to check the animals. The ranch routine didn't stop. Tobias was already in the corral, separating cattle. The other hands arrived little by little. Everyone looked at the main house with barely disguised curiosity. News traveled fast. "How's the girl, Mr. Henry?" asked Tobias without beating around the bush. "Made it through the night. Doctor comes back today." "And is she staying here?" Henry looked at the foreman, a man he had known since childhood. "She'll stay until she recovers. Then she decides what she wants to do." Tobias nodded. "You know folks are going to talk, right?" I know. And you don't care? Henry looked at the main house, at the window of the room where Clara slept. No, I don't care. He worked the entire morning without stopping, fixed a fence, checked the feedstock, kept his hands busy so as not to think. But he thought. He thought about Clara, about who had hurt her, about why he cared so much about a stranger. At noon, he returned to the house. Mrs. Higgins was in the kitchen preparing lunch. The girl woke up an hour ago, she informed him. Had some broth, talked a little. She's calmer. She looked at Henry with an expression he couldn't decipher. She told me what happened. What? The cook sighed deeply. Her father kicked her out when he found out she was pregnant. Put her on the street like a dog. The man who got her pregnant promised to marry her, but when she needed him most, he dumped her on the road, said she should fend for herself. Henry felt the anger return, stronger. What kind of man does that? The worst kind, Mrs. Higgins replied bitterly. But God knows all, and she looked at Henry with bright eyes. You were an instrument of providence, Mr. Henry. God put that girl in your path for a reason. Henry didn't answer. He went up to Clara's room, knocked on the door before entering. She was sitting up in bed, propped against pillows, wearing a clean nightgown that must have been Mrs. Higgins'. Dark hair loose on her shoulders, washed now. Without the road dirt, Henry saw that she was beautiful. Delicate face with soft features, large light brown eyes, small mouth. The bruise on her face was purple and yellow. "How are you feeling, Ma'am?" "Better, thank you." Her voice was low, polite. "Mr. Vance?" He nodded. "Just Henry." "No need for Mr." Clara looked at her own hands. "Mrs. Higgins told me you found me on the road. I don't remember much. I remember walking a lot, falling, being very cold. Then I only remember waking up here. Do you know how you ended up on that road?" She closed her eyes. "I do. The man who got me pregnant picked me up at the gazebo in the square in Boulder. I had run away from home. He said he was going to take me to the big city, find work for me. But halfway there he stopped the wagon and told me to get out, said he wasn't going to carry other people's problems. When I begged, She touched her bruised face. He pushed me. I fell out of the wagon. He drove off and left me there. Henry felt a desire to find this man. "And your father?" Clara gave a bitter laugh, joyless. "My father is a merchant in Boulder, a respected man, goes to church every Sunday. When he found out I was pregnant out of wedlock, he called me every name in the book, said I had stained the family name, gave me 2 hours to leave the house. My mother cried but did nothing. I have 2 younger brothers. They just watched while I walked away." "How old are you, ma'am?" 23. "And you?" 42. Silence. Clara looked around the room. "Why did you do this? Why did you bring me to your house? You don't know anything about me." Henry pulled the chair near the bed and sat down. "I don't know. I only know I couldn't leave you to die on that road. But now I am your problem. I have nowhere to go. I have no money, no family. I'm expecting a baby from a man who abandoned me." Her eyes filled with tears. "You should have left me there. It would have been easier." Henry felt something tighten in his chest. Easier for whom? For everyone. For me, for you, for this baby who will be born without a father, without a name, without anything. Those words echoed something in Henry, a baby without a name. Like the son he never knew, never held, never baptized, buried without a name in his mother's coffin. "Look, Clara, I don't know what the future brings, but I know today is Christmas Eve, and you are alive and safe. Tomorrow we think about the rest." She wiped her tears. "You are very kind. I don't know many men like that." "I'm not kind." Henry stood up. "I'm just someone who knows what it is to lose everything, and I don't wish that on anyone." He left the room before she could ask more. He went down and went straight to the fields. He needed air. He walked to the small orchard behind the main house, a place where Eleanor used to spend her afternoons. The trees were bare now, stark skeletons against the grey sky. He stayed there until the sun began to set. When he returned to the house, Dr. Ambrose was leaving. The doctor smiled upon seeing him. "She'll be fine, Henry. She's a strong girl. A few more weeks of rest and good food, she'll be recovered." "And the baby?" "Seems healthy. Will be born in April or May by my calculation." "Thank you, Doctor." The doctor put on his hat. "Merry Christmas, Henry. And be careful with your heart. Sometimes kindness opens doors we've kept closed for a long time." He left, leaving Henry on the porch, thinking about the meaning of those words. Christmas Eve was strange. Mrs. Higgins prepared a simple supper, as traditionally only she and Tobias dined there. But that year, there was Clara. Henry went up to ask if she wanted to come down. The girl hesitated but agreed. Mrs. Higgins helped her put on a simple dress and descend the stairs slowly. They sat at the large dining table, a table that used to seat 20 people when Henry's parents were alive. Now they were just 4. Tobias blessed the food. Mrs. Higgins served roast turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes. Clara ate slowly, in silence, looking around as if she still didn't believe she was there. After supper, Tobias and Mrs. Higgins said good night. The cook looked at Henry with that maternal gaze. "Don't let her go up alone," she recommended quietly. "Clara is still weak." Henry helped the girl up the stairs. She held the banister tightly, breathing deeply with every step. When they reached the room, she sat on the bed, exhausted. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. For the food, for the house, for the kindness. I will leave as soon as I can work. I don't want to be a burden." "You are not a burden." Clara looked at him. "Why are you so gentle with me? I am nobody. I am a fallen woman, disgraced. You shouldn't even speak to me." Henry didn't plan what he said next. The words came out on their own. "I lost my wife 3 years ago. She died in childbirth. The baby too. Since then, this house has been empty. I was empty. When I found you on the road, it was as if—" He paused, searching for words. "It was as if God gave me a chance to save someone, since I couldn't save the one I loved." Tears streamed down Clara's face. "I am so sorry for your loss, and I am sorry for yours." Henry went to the door. "Rest. Tomorrow is Christmas, a day for new beginnings." He returned to his own room but didn't sleep. He kept thinking about the next day. It was Christmas, a day he had avoided for 3 years. But this year would be different, because this year there was someone in that house who needed hope as much as he did. At 6 in the morning on December 25th, Henry got up with his mind made up. He dressed in his Sunday best, the same suit he used to wear to church when he still went. He shaved for the first time in weeks, combed his hair. He looked in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the man he saw, but there was something different in the eyes, something that hadn't been there for 3 years. Purpose. He went down and asked Mrs. Higgins to prepare a special breakfast. The cook looked at him surprised but obeyed. Then Henry went up and knocked on Clara's door. She opened it wearing the same simple dress from the night before. "Good morning," she said shyly. "Good morning. Can you come down when you're ready? I need to talk to you and the staff." She agreed, confused. 15 minutes later, she was in the parlor. Henry asked her to sit on the sofa. He went out and called all the employees who lived on the ranch. Tobias, Mrs. Higgins, Quentin, plus 6 men and 3 women who worked there. Everyone entered the room, curious and restless. Henry stood near the fireplace. Clara was sitting, hands nervous in her lap, not understanding what was happening. The rancher took a deep breath. "I want everyone to know that Miss Clara Miller will be living here at the ranch starting today." Murmurs among the employees. Henry raised a hand asking for silence. "I know questions and gossip will arise, so let me be clear. Miss Clara is going through a difficult situation. She was abandoned by her family and the man who left her pregnant. I found her on the road, nearly dead from cold. I brought her here because it was the right thing to do." He paused, looking each one in the eye. "And from now on, Miss Clara will be the administrator of this house. She will take care of the organization, the domestic accounts, the purchasing. She will receive a monthly salary of $40. The silence in the room was absolute. Clara looked at Henry with wide eyes, mouth slightly open. He continued, "When the child is born, if Miss Clara accepts, I will give my surname to the baby, Vance. The child will have a name, will have a registry, will have a future." Henry looked at Clara. "Because no child should come into the world without a name or protection." Tears ran free down Clara's face. She tried to speak but couldn't. Henry turned back to the employees. "I know this is unusual. I know you'll think it's strange. But this is my decision, and I expect everyone to treat Miss Clara with respect. Does anyone have anything to say?" No one spoke for long seconds. Then Mrs. Higgins stepped forward, tears also in her eyes. "You are a man of big heart, Mr. Henry. Your mother would be proud." And she looked at Clara. "Welcome to the family, child." One by one, the employees greeted Clara, some with genuine smiles, others still suspicious, but all respectful. When everyone left, Clara remained seated, crying uncontrollably. Henry knelt in front of her. "Why did you do this?" she sobbed. "Why are you giving all this to me? I don't deserve it. Everyone deserves dignity. Everyone deserves a chance to start over." Clara took his hands, an unexpected gesture that made Henry freeze. "I promise I will work hard. I promise I will take care of the house. I promise I won't disappoint you, sir." Henry looked at that young face, bruised, full of hope and fear mixed together, and felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. He felt a desire to protect. He felt a desire to fight for someone. He felt a desire to live again. "I know you will," he said softly. "Now rest. Tomorrow we start the work." But that night, alone in his study, Henry stood looking out the window at the stars and asked himself exactly what he had just done. He had brought a pregnant, disgraced woman to live in his house, offered a salary, a name, protection. The whole town would talk. There would be a scandal. But at the same time, for the first time in 3 years, the main house wasn't silent. There was another person there. There was life. And Henry Vance, who thought he had buried his heart along with Eleanor, discovered, terrified, that perhaps there was still something alive inside him. Something that had awakened when he saw an abandoned girl on the side of the road and decided he wouldn't let one more person die alone. Not on that Christmas. Not while he could do something about it. The first days of January 1939 brought intense cold to the Colorado highlands. The sun rose at 7:30, transforming the snow-covered fields into a sea of blinding light. Henry woke before that, as he always had, but now there was a subtle difference in the routine. There was the sound of footsteps upstairs. There was the smell of coffee being brewed in the kitchen by hands that were not his. There was life in the main house. Clara took 3 days to recover completely from her injuries. By the 4th day, she was already insisting on helping. Mrs. Higgins tried to convince her to rest more, but the girl was stubborn. "I won't sit idly by receiving a salary without working," she had said with determination in her brown eyes. Henry had observed the scene from afar and didn't interfere. He understood her pride. He understood the need to feel useful. Clara started slowly. She organized the pantry, which had been chaotic for years, catalogued the supplies, separated what was expired, made a detailed shopping list. Henry was impressed by her neat handwriting, by the precise numbers. "Miss writes and calculates well," he commented upon seeing the lists. She nodded shyly. My father wanted his children to be educated, hired a private tutor when we were small. I learned to read, write, do sums. My mother taught me sewing, embroidery, domestic skills. Her voice turned bitter. All so I could land a good marriage. Didn't help at all in the end. Henry didn't know how to respond. He changed the subject, asking about the cost of supplies. Clara explained every item, suggested cheaper suppliers in Silver Creek, proposed smart savings. She had a head for business, that was clear. On the 10th day after Christmas, Clara came down for breakfast wearing a simple dark green dress that Mrs. Higgins had sewn. The dress disguised the belly that was beginning to show more. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun, face clean without the bruises that had already vanished. She looked different. She looked rested. She looked almost happy. "Good morning," she greeted, sitting at the table. Henry, who was already drinking coffee, returned the greeting. He still found it strange hearing another voice in the morning, still found it strange not being alone. Mrs. Higgins served homemade bread, butter, blackberry jam, scrambled eggs. Clara ate with an appetite she didn't have when she arrived. The doctor had said she was malnourished. Now she was gaining weight, gaining color. The transformation was visible. "I finished the inventory of the house yesterday," Clara informed him, wiping her mouth with a napkin. "We're missing sheets, towels, some kitchen utensils. I also noticed the curtains in the parlor are torn in 2 places. I can mend them if you get me thread and needle." Henry noticed she was trying to call him just you, as he had asked. But sir still slipped out sometimes. "Do whatever you think necessary. The house has needed care for a long time." Clara hesitated before speaking. "Can I ask something? Why did you let the house get like this? It's such a beautiful house, so big, but it looks abandoned in some places." Henry drank his coffee slowly, buying time. "When Eleanor died, I couldn't take care of her things anymore, of the places she liked. It was easier to leave everything as it was, close the doors, and not enter. And now? Now I think it's time to open those doors." Clara smiled, small and shy, but genuine. It was the first smile Henry had seen on her. It changed her face completely, made her beautiful in a different way. He looked away quickly, uncomfortable with his own thought. After breakfast, Henry went out to work. January was harsh, and keeping the livestock fed and warm required constant effort. Tobias and the men were already out, breaking ice on the troughs, hauling hay. The work was hard under the freezing air. Henry worked alongside them, carrying weight, sweating despite the cold, feeling his muscles burn. He liked it. He liked physical work that tired the body and quieted the mind. If you are enjoying this story, leave a like so more people can discover this channel. Your participation is very important. At noon, he returned for lunch. The table was set with a care he hadn't seen in years. Clean tablecloth, polished silverware, plates well positioned. Clara came out of the kitchen, bringing a platter of roast beef and potatoes. Mrs. Higgins came behind with vegetables and bread. The two worked well together. Henry noticed that Mrs. Higgins treated Clara with maternal affection, teaching recipes, correcting small errors, praising successes. The girl absorbed everything like a sponge. She wanted to learn. She wanted to prove her worth. During lunch, Clara mentioned she had found a library on the 2nd floor. "Can I read the books?" she asked with bright eyes. "It's been so long since I've read anything." "Read whatever you like. Most belonged to my father. He liked literature." "And you don't?" "I used to. Stopped reading when—" Henry didn't finish. He didn't need to. Clara understood. "Maybe you should go back to it," she suggested softly. "Sometimes books help heal what hurts inside." Henry looked at her surprised. It was a profound observation for such a young girl. "Maybe I should," he agreed. In the afternoon, while Henry returned to the fields, Clara worked on the curtains. She sat by the fireplace in the parlor with a sewing basket. Her fingers moved fast and precise, mending the tears with almost invisible stitches. Mrs. Higgins came out to keep her company, bringing her own embroidery. "You sew very well, child," praised the cook, watching Clara's work. "My mother was an excellent seamstress. Sold embroidered tablecloths and sheets to rich families in Boulder. She taught me from when I was little." Clara's voice became distant. "I miss her. I know she couldn't defend me against my father, but I still miss her." "A mother is a mother," agreed Mrs. Higgins. "Even when they aren't perfect, we love them." "Do you have children?" "I did. 3. All grown and married now. Live in other towns. I see them little." Mrs. Higgins sighed. "That's why I like taking care of Mr. Henry. He became like a son to me in a way." Clara looked at the ranch operations through the window. "He is a good man, isn't he?" "The best I know." Mrs. Higgins lowered her voice. "When Mrs. Eleanor died, he almost died with her. Didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't speak. Stayed locked in his room for weeks. We thought he was going to do something foolish, but slowly he came back. Didn't come back whole, didn't come back happy, but he came back. Continued living because he knew the ranch needed him." The cook looked at Clara with intensity. "And now you arrived, and I see a light in his eyes I haven't seen in 3 years." Clara felt her face heat up. "I don't know if I understand what you mean." "You understand all right. You're a smart girl." Mrs. Higgins went back to her embroidery. "Just don't be afraid, child. Sometimes God closes doors to open better windows." That conversation kept echoing in Clara's head for the rest of the day. She wasn't a fool. She noticed how Henry looked at her sometimes when he thought she didn't see. Quick glances, almost ashamed, as if he didn't know what to do with what he felt. And her, what did she feel? Gratitude, certainly. Henry saved her life. Gave a roof, food, dignity, a future for her child. But was it just gratitude? When he entered a room, she noticed. When he spoke, she paid attention to every word. When he smiled, rare as it was, she felt something warm in her chest. No, she couldn't think like that. It was too soon, too inappropriate. She was pregnant by another man. She had no right to feel anything for Henry beyond gratitude. But the heart didn't obey reason. Days passed in a comfortable routine. Henry worked outside from dawn until dusk. Clara took care of the house, learned recipes with Mrs. Higgins, read at night in the library. They dined together, talked little but in an increasingly natural way. He talked about the work on the ranch. She talked about her reading, small conversations that built something bigger, familiarity, trust, friendship. In the 3rd week of January, an unexpected visit arrived. Henry was in the barn when he heard the sound of a car on the road. He wasn't expecting anyone. He walked to the front of the house and saw a sleek black sedan pulling up to the gate. From it stepped a tall man in a grey suit, black hair slicked back with pomade, a thin, well-trimmed mustache. Henry recognized him immediately and felt his stomach tighten. Victor Sterling, his brother-in-law. Victor was 3 years younger than Henry, Eleanor's brother. He had always been a vain and ambitious man, worked as a lawyer in Silver Creek, had a prosperous office, important clientele, never married, lived alone in a large house in the center of town, and had always made it clear he thought Henry didn't deserve Eleanor, didn't deserve the ranch, didn't deserve the Vance connection. "Henry," Victor called with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What a surprise to see me here, isn't it?" "Victor, wasn't expecting your visit." "Evidently." The brother-in-law looked around with a critical expression. "The ranch is well kept, I see. At least in that you didn't disappoint." Henry took a deep breath, controlling his irritation. "What brings you here? Can't I visit the ranch that was my family's?" "You can, but usually you call ahead." Victor took off his hat, brushing off imaginary dust. This time, I preferred the surprise, especially after the stories I heard in town. Henry went on alert. What stories? The brother-in-law smiled sideways, a malicious look. Stories about you bringing a woman to live here. Young, single, pregnant woman. Caused quite a scandal, brother-in-law. The church ladies speak of nothing else. Before Henry could respond, the front door opened. Clara stepped out holding a dish towel, clearly coming from the kitchen. She stopped upon seeing the visitor, uncertainty on her face. Victor looked her up and down in a way that made Henry clench his fists. "So this is her," he said slowly. "The protégé. Clara, this is my brother-in-law, Victor. Victor, this is Clara Miller, the house administrator." "Administrator?" repeated Victor, with obvious irony. What a pompous title. And he looked at her belly, which the dress didn't completely hide. "Congratulations on the child, miss. Is the father around, or did you lose him too?" Clara paled. Henry took a step forward, placing himself between them. "Watch what you say on my property, Victor." The brother-in-law raised his hands in false surrender. "No offense. Just curiosity about the girl who managed to make the reclusive widower open the doors of his house. Must have special talents." The insinuation was clear and repugnant. Henry felt rage rise hot. "Clara is here because I offered help to someone who needed it. If that offends your morals, that's your problem." "Morals aren't just mine, Henry. It's the whole town's. Do you know what they are saying? That you brought a pregnant mistress home before my sister's grave is barely cold. That you are dishonoring Eleanor's memory." That hurt. Hurt more than Henry expected. "I would never dishonor Eleanor. You know that." "Do I?" Victor took a step closer, voice low and venomous. "Or is it that you always wanted a younger, more convenient woman? Eleanor was complicated, had opinions, didn't obey you blindly. This one here must be more pliable." Henry didn't think. The punch came out instinctively, connecting with Victor's jaw hard. The brother-in-law stumbled back, falling seated on the ground, snow dirt. He brought a hand to his face, eyes wide with shock and rage. Clara screamed. Mrs. Higgins appeared at the door. Tobias came running from the corral. Victor got up slowly, wiping blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked at Henry with pure hatred. "You will regret this," he hissed. He went back to the car, got in, slamming the door, and drove off, kicking up slush. Henry stood still, breathing heavy, hand throbbing. Clara approached, touched his arm carefully. "You didn't need to do that. Not because of me." He looked at her. Brown eyes worried, face pale, hands trembling slightly. "Yes, I did," he said simply. "He has no right to speak to you like that. But now he will cause problems. Let him." Henry pulled away, entering the house. Needed to wash his hand, calm the rage, think. He went up to his room and closed the door. He sat on the bed, looking at his swollen hand. He hadn't hit anyone since his youth. He wasn't a violent man. But hearing Victor talk that way about Clara, insinuating disgusting things, had awakened something primitive in him. Instinct to protect. Instinct to defend. And the words about Eleanor also hurt. Was he really dishonoring his wife's memory? Would Eleanor understand what he had done? Approve? Or would she be hurt seeing another woman in the house that had been hers? Henry got up and went to the wardrobe. In the back, wrapped in a clean cloth, was Eleanor's diary. He had kept it there after the funeral, lacking the courage to read it. It was too painful. But now he took the leather-bound book, opened to the last written page. Eleanor's delicate handwriting filled the page. The date was 2 days before she died. March 1935. "The baby is coming soon. I feel him moving constantly. Henry is anxious, can barely sleep, pretends he is calm, but I see the fear in his eyes. He is so afraid of losing me. I am afraid too. Mrs. Gable's delivery last week did not go well. She died. The baby too. What if it happens to me? Henry stopped reading. He didn't know Eleanor was afraid. She never showed it. He continued reading. If something happens to me, I hope Henry doesn't close himself off to the world. He tends to do that, isolates himself when he suffers, but he deserves to be happy, deserves to love again. If I die, I want him to know he doesn't need to stay alone for the rest of his life in my honor. I want him to live. I want him to find someone who makes him smile again, someone to fill this house with life as I tried to do. Please, Henry, if you are reading this after I am gone, do not bury yourself along with my heart. Live for me, love for me, be happy for me. Tears blurred Henry's vision. He closed the diary slowly, pressing it against his chest. Eleanor had left permission, had left a blessing. She didn't want him to stay trapped in pain forever. But was he ready? Was it right to feel something for Clara when he still mourned Eleanor? And Clara was pregnant by another man. How could he think of her in a romantic way when she carried the child of the one who abandoned her? Henry put the diary away and went down. Clara was in the kitchen helping Mrs. Higgins with dinner. She turned when he entered. "How is your hand?" "Fine. Will turn purple, but nothing broken." She approached and took his hand, examining the knuckles. Her skin was soft, touch gentle. Henry felt something run up his arm. "Should have put ice on it immediately," scolded Clara. "Mrs. Higgins, do you have ice?" "There's some in the icebox. I'll get it." The cook left, leaving them alone. Clara still held Henry's hand, thumb tracing unconscious circles over the bruised skin. "I am so sorry for causing trouble with your brother-in-law," she said quietly. "You caused nothing. Victor has always been like that. Always despised me." The cook returned with a cloth full of ice. Clara wrapped Henry's hand with care. "Why does he despise you?" "Because I married his sister. Because she chose ranch life instead of city life. Because when she died, this ranch passed completely to me instead of being divided with him." Henry paused. "Victor always thought he deserved more than he has, and always thought I didn't deserve what I have." "And will he come back?" "Probably." Henry looked at Clara. "But I won't let him intimidate or hurt you. You can rest easy." Clara smiled softly. "Thank you. I'm not used to having someone defend me." That smile made something tighten in Henry's chest. He pulled away, uncomfortable with the proximity. "I'll check the cattle before dark," he murmured, and left quickly. Clara stood still feeling the warmth of his hand on hers. Mrs. Higgins returned to the kitchen and looked at the girl with a knowing expression. "It's happening, isn't it?" she said simply. "What?" "You know what? Both are starting to feel." Mrs. Higgins stirred the pot on the stove. "It's natural. Two lonely, wounded people healing together. Love is born like that sometimes." Clara shook her head. "I can't think like that. I am pregnant by another man. Henry was kind to me, saved me, but that doesn't mean he feels anything beyond pity. Pity doesn't make a man punch his brother-in-law, child. Pity doesn't make a man look at a woman the way he looks at you when he thinks no one sees." Clara felt her heart accelerate. "How does he look?" "Like a man who is starting to wake up after a long sleep." That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Mrs. Higgins's words, the way Henry had defended her, the touch of their hands. Was something really happening? And if it was, what to do? She had no illusions about herself. She was a fallen woman, pregnant, without family, without money. What future could she offer Henry? He deserved someone better, someone whole, someone who didn't carry another's child. But at the same time, when she was near him, she felt safe for the first time in months, felt valued, felt seen as a person, not a shame or a problem. Could she allow herself to feel something more? Or was she being foolish, confusing gratitude with something deeper? The next morning, Henry woke up to persistent knocking on the door. He went down still in his nightshirt and found Tobias on the porch, expression worried. "Mr. Henry, there's trouble in town. The preacher sent word he wants to speak with you today." "About what?" The foreman hesitated. "About Miss Clara. Your brother-in-law was at the church yesterday afternoon. Spoke with the preacher, with the church ladies, with half the town. Is saying you are living in sin, dishonoring the deceased's memory. The preacher wants to talk." Henry felt the anger return. "So that's how it's going to be," he muttered. "Victor didn't waste time. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to town to talk to the preacher." Henry went up to dress, put on his Sunday clothes, shaved with care. If he was going to face judgment, he would do it with dignity. Clara was having coffee when he came down. She saw his clothes and understood. "Going to town because of me. Going to clear up a misunderstanding, don't worry. Can I come?" "No." Henry softened his tone upon seeing the hurt in her eyes. "It's better I go alone this time. The preacher is a reasonable man. We'll talk." But he knew it wouldn't be that simple. The town of Silver Creek had 500 inhabitants, one main street of commerce, a stone church on top of the hill. Henry knew every house, every person, grew up there. When he arrived, he noticed curious and judgmental glances following him. The gossip had already spread. The church was empty, except for Father Sebastian kneeling before the altar. He was a man of 60, white hair, kind eyes, had served that parish for 30 years, baptized Henry, married him to Eleanor, buried her and the baby, knew the Vance family since forever. "Father," called Henry. The priest stood up, turned around. "Henry, my son, thank you for coming." He sat on a pew and indicated for Henry to do the same. "I know why you called me. My brother-in-law came to talk to you." "He did. And not just him. Several people from town came. They are scandalized, Henry. They say you brought a pregnant single woman to live in your house, that you are living together without matrimony, that it is disrespect to your late wife's memory." Henry breathed deep, controlling his anger. "And you? What do you think?" The priest sighed. "I think you have always been a good man. I think you must have good reasons for what you did. That's why I want to hear your version before judging." Henry told the whole story. How he found Clara on the road, her state, the decision to help, the offer of work and future for the baby. The priest listened in silence. "I understand your kindness," he said at the end, "and I admire it. But do you understand how this looks? A young, beautiful woman living alone with a widower. Appearances matter, Henry. More than doing what is right. The right thing would be to find family for her, a convent, an orphanage for unwed mothers, not bring her to your house." Henry felt bitterness. A convent that would treat her like a sinner. An orphanage that would take her baby as soon as it was born. Is that right? The priest didn't answer immediately. "They are solutions accepted by society," he finally said. "And what does God think?" Henry stood up. Jesus welcomed prostitutes, ate with sinners, defended the adulteress from being stoned. Would he ask about appearances or compassion? "You are right in your words, Henry, but you have a wife dead only 3 years. People will think you replaced her." "No one replaces anyone, Father. Eleanor will always have a place in my heart, but she wouldn't want me closed off forever. She left me a letter asking me to live, to be happy. I'm trying to honor that request." The priest looked at Henry with sadness. "You are falling in love with her, aren't you?" The question caught Henry off guard. He didn't answer. "Be careful, my son. That path is complicated. She carries another's child. You are vulnerable after so much suffering. Do not confuse gratitude and protection with love." Henry left the church without another word, drove back to the ranch, feeling a heavier weight than when he left. The priest's words echoed. Was he confusing his feelings? Was it just a need to fill a void? Or was it something more? When he arrived, it was late afternoon. He found Clara in the orchard behind the house, the same place Eleanor used to be. She was picking winter berries, filling a basket. The golden light of dusk illuminated her hair, the round belly under the dress, the concentrated expression. Henry stood just watching, heart tight with a sensation he couldn't name. Clara noticed his presence and turned, smiled. How was the talk? Henry approached. Complicated, but expected. The preacher is worried about scandal. Her smile died. I will leave. I don't want to cause problems for you. No. The word came out stronger than Henry intended. You are not going anywhere. I don't care what people think. Clara set the basket on the ground. But I care. I care because you saved me. Because you gave me dignity when the whole world despised me. I don't want to repay that by ruining your reputation. Henry took a step closer. My reputation will survive, but you, what will you do if you leave here? Where will you go? I don't know. Tears began. But I'll figure it out. I can't stay if it's causing so much trouble. Look at me. Henry waited until she raised her face. Look at me, Clara. I want you to stay. Not out of pity, not out of duty. Because... He stopped, searching for the right words. Because this house is alive again since you arrived. Because I am alive again. Her eyes went wide. Henry, I know it's soon. I know it's complicated. I know you are expecting another man's child and that I still cry for my dead wife. But something is happening here, between us. You feel it too, don't you? Clara swallowed hard. I do, but I am afraid. Me too. Henry touched her face, a gentle gesture. I am afraid too, but maybe it's time we be brave. She closed her eyes, leaning into the touch. When she opened them again, there was decision there. I'll stay. I will stay and face whatever comes. Together, together, repeated Henry. And there, under the trees of the orchard Eleanor had loved, with the sun setting behind them and the uncertain future ahead, two wounded hearts began slowly to heal. It wasn't love yet, not totally, but it was a beginning. It was a promise. It was hope that maybe, just maybe, they could build something beautiful from the ashes of their pain. But not everything would be easy. Victor was just beginning his campaign, and the challenges that would come would test everything Henry and Clara were building. February arrived, bringing heavy snowstorms to the Colorado high country. The afternoon blizzards buried the fields, turned roads into drifts, froze the creeks. Henry worked in the cold, fixing fences the storm knocked down, protecting the cattle, saving what he could. He returned soaked and freezing every evening. And every evening Clara was waiting with clean towels, hot water for a bath, dry clothes prepared, small gestures that built something bigger. She left fresh coffee on the study desk when he worked late on the ledgers. He brought winter sprigs from the field that he put in a vase in the kitchen without saying a word. She mended his shirts with extra care, reinforcing buttons, patching tears. He made sure she rested on the colder afternoons, that she didn't carry weight, that she ate extra portions. They didn't speak about what was growing between them, but it was there. In the glances that lasted seconds too long, in the hands that touched when passing objects and delayed separating, in the smiles that appeared without reason when they were in the same room, in the comfortable silences that didn't need to be filled with words. Mrs. Higgins observed everything with maternal satisfaction. Tobias commented to his wife that he hadn't seen the boss smile so much in years. The other hands got used to Clara, respected her, liked her. The main house had a soul again, but outside the ranch boundaries, the storm Victor started only grew. Henry's brother-in-law hadn't given up. On the contrary, he intensified the attacks, spread stories through town, exaggerated details, planted doubts. That Henry and Clara slept in the same room, that the baby was his, not a mysterious man's, that he tricked the poor girl promising marriage, that he was squandering the Vance family inheritance with a mistress. The church ladies embraced the cause with fervour. Mrs. Euphrasia, a wealthy widow who had always despised Henry for refusing her daughter's interest years ago, led the group. They gathered after services, murmured, scandalized, made a petition asking the preacher to intervene. Father Sebastian tried to calm spirits, but was a solitary voice. Moral indignation was a powerful force, and Victor knew exactly how to feed it. He himself attended church now, always in the front row, always with the expression of a pious man concerned for the soul of his wayward brother-in-law. The news reached the ranch through the hands who went to town for supplies. Clara heard the stories with growing anguish. Henry pretended not to care, but she saw the tension in his shoulders, the clenched jaw, the worried eyes. On the 10th of February, Clara was in the library looking for a book to read when she found something hidden behind volumes of poetry. It was a leather-bound notebook, brown, without identification. She opened it with curiosity and recognized immediately the delicate feminine handwriting. It was a diary, Eleanor's diary. She should close it, should return it without reading. But curiosity was stronger. Clara leafed through the pages, reading random passages. Eleanor wrote about ranch life, about Henry, about dreams and fears. The writing was joyful at the start, became more reflective as the months passed. Clara reached the last entries, written just before death. She began to read and felt tears fill her eyes. Eleanor was afraid of childbirth, was afraid of dying, but more than that, was afraid of leaving Henry alone. She wrote whole pages about him, about how he was a good man who deserved happiness, about how she wanted him to find love again if something happened. The last entry was a letter to Henry that he apparently had read but kept with the diary. "My love, if you are reading this, it means I have gone. It means our baby did not survive, or that I was not strong enough. Forgive me. I tried to be brave, but fear won. I want you to know that the years by your side were the happiest of my life. You made me feel loved, protected, valued. You gave me a home, a family, a purpose. Thank you for every day, every smile, every moment. And now my final request, do not bury yourself with my memory. Do not turn this house into a tomb. Do not turn your heart into stone. Live, Henry. Love again. Be happy again. Find someone who fills this house with life, who makes you smile, who heals the wounds my departure will leave. Do not disrespect me by staying alone forever. Honor me by being happy. Honor me by loving again. Honor me by living fully. This is my last wish, my blessing, my gift to you. Go, my love. Go and be happy. I will be watching from somewhere, smiling to see you find peace again. With all my eternal love, Eleanor." Clara closed the diary, crying. Eleanor had given permission, had blessed any future happiness of Henry's. It wasn't betrayal to love again. It was honor. It was fulfilling her last wish. The library door opened. Henry entered carrying papers and stopped upon seeing her. "Clara," he called worriedly. "Why are you crying?" She held out the diary. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have read it, but I found it hidden and... Henry, she loved you so much, so much." He took the diary, recognized it, sighed. "I know. She loved me, and I loved her. That's why it hurts so much. But she didn't want you to suffer forever. She wanted you to be happy." Henry sat beside Clara on the sofa. "I know. Read that letter 100 times. But knowing what she wanted and being able to do it are different things. How can I be happy when she isn't here?" Clara touched his hand. "By being happy, you honor her memory. Show that her love wasn't in vain, that she managed to make you happy while she was alive and left you strong enough to continue." He looked at Clara, really looked, saw the young girl he found on the road nearly dead, transformed now into a woman radiating life despite all difficulties, saw the round belly with the child who would be born in months, saw the brown eyes full of compassion and understanding, and knew with absolute certainty that he was in love. "I love you," he said simply. "Didn't plan it, didn't expect it, but I do. I love your courage, your strength, your kindness. I love how you transformed this house. I love how you transformed me." Clara felt her heart race. "Henry, I know it's soon. I know you are pregnant by another man. I know I still cry for Eleanor sometimes, but that doesn't change what I feel. I love you, Clara, and if you give me a chance, I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." She threw her arms around him, crying and laughing at the same time. "I love you too. I was afraid to say it, afraid of not deserving it, but I do. I love since you defended my honor against your brother-in-law, since you gave me dignity when the whole world despised me. I love you, Henry Vance." They kissed there, surrounded by books, with Eleanor's diary on the sofa beside them as a silent blessing. It was a sweet, careful kiss, full of promise. When they separated, both were smiling. "Then marry me," asked Henry. "Marry me, Clara. Let me give my name to you and your child. Let me build a family with you. Let me make you happy." "Yes," the answer came without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you." But happiness would be tested before becoming concrete. 2 days later, on Sunday morning, Henry and Clara went to church together for the first time. He wanted to make the engagement public, face the gossip with head held high. Clara was nervous but agreed, wore the most beautiful dress she had, light blue that Mrs. Higgins had sewn. The 6-month belly was impossible to hide. When they entered the church, silence fell like a stone. All heads turned. Murmurs began immediately. Mrs. Euphrasia crossed herself, scandalized. Other women covered their mouths, eyes wide. The men looked with a mix of disapproval and curiosity. Henry held Clara's hand firm, guiding her down the central aisle. They sat in the Vance family pew, the same one where he sat with Eleanor so many times. A few rows ahead, Victor turned and smiled, an expression of triumph on his face. Father Sebastian began the service, but the tension in the air was palpable. No one paid attention to the words. Everyone looked at Henry and Clara. At the moment of communion, when Clara stood up to receive, Mrs. Euphrasia spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "A sinner shouldn't take communion." Clara stopped, face red with shame. Henry stood up immediately. "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone," he said loud and clear. "Aren't those words from the Bible, Mrs. Euphrasia? Or does it only count when it isn't you judging?" The church exploded in murmurs. The priest tried to restore order. Henry continued, "My future wife has the right to be here as much as anyone. If that bothers you, the problem is yours, not hers." "Future wife?" repeated Victor, standing up. He looked around dramatically. "Did you all hear? He is going to marry her. A woman pregnant by another who appeared out of nowhere, who has been living in his house for months. And still has the nerve to say it isn't immoral?" "It isn't immoral to love someone," replied Henry. "It isn't immoral to offer dignity to one the world despised. It isn't immoral to want to build a family." "Family?" Victor laughed cruelly. "My sister is barely cold in the grave, and you already arranged a substitute. And what a substitute! A fallen woman without family, carrying a bastard. I bet she seduced you, didn't she? Saw a rich and lonely man and took advantage." "Ugh, don't speak of her like that." Henry's voice was low, dangerous. "I will speak as I please." Victor approached. "You are dishonoring my sister's memory. You are shaming the Vance name. You are wasting the family inheritance on a tramp." Henry advanced, but Clara held his arm. "No," she whispered, "it's not worth it." She was right, but the anger was too much. Henry looked at Victor with hatred. "You never loved Eleanor. You only wanted her inheritance. Admit it once and for all. Of course I wanted it, Victor didn't deny. That ranch should be mine as much as yours. Eleanor was my sister, but you appeared and took everything. And now you're going to leave it all to this woman's bastard child? If you are enjoying this story, leave your like and share with people who need to believe in true love. The child who is going to be born will have my name and my inheritance, declared Henry. And you aren't going to do anything about it. We'll see. Victor smiled. I have a lawyer preparing a petition. I'm going to allege that you are mentally incapacitated, that this woman manipulated you, that you aren't fit to manage the ranch. I'm going to take everything that should be mine. You can't. Can't I? Look around, Henry. The whole town is on my side. Everyone sees what she did to you. Everyone agrees you need to be protected from yourself. The judge is a friend of my father's. Do you really think you'll win? Henry felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. Victor was serious, had a plan, had allies, could really try to take the ranch. Clara took a step forward. Her voice trembled, but came out firm. I will leave. What? Henry turned to her, shocked. If my presence is causing all this, I will leave. I don't want you to lose your ranch because of me. I don't want to be a cause of suffering. No. Henry took her hands. You aren't going anywhere. But he looked around at all the people judging, murmuring, condemning, looked at Victor with his victorious expression, looked at the priest with an expression of pity, and made a decision. He turned to Clara and knelt right there in the middle of the church, before everyone. Clara Miller, he said loud and clear. You saved me as much as I saved you, brought life back to my house and my heart, taught me that it is possible to start over after loss, made me want to live again. So I ask here before God and all these people, will you marry me? Do you want to build a life with me? Do you want to be my wife and let me be a father to your child? Tears streamed down Clara's face. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, I do. Henry stood up and kissed her, a deep and passionate kiss that made clear to everyone there exactly what they felt for each other. When they separated, the church was in absolute silence. Henry turned to the priest. Can you marry us now? Father Sebastian looked around at the scandalized congregation, at furious Victor, at the couple in love before him, made a decision. I can, but need witnesses and documents. Come to the vestry tomorrow. We will do everything according to the law. Thank you, Father. Henry took Clara's hand and walked down the aisle of the church. All eyes followed them. Some were of scandal, others of disapproval, but some, few but present, were of admiration, of respect, of those who understood that true love is worth more than social conventions. Mrs. Higgins was in the back row, grinned huge when they passed. Tobias beside her nodded discreetly. Dr. Ambrose, who rarely went to church, was there and made a gesture of approval. They weren't completely alone. They left the church under the strong February sun. Victor came out behind, red with rage. This isn't over, Henry. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to take everything. Try. Henry turned to face him. But know that I will fight. For her, for our child, for our family. I will fight with everything I have, and you will lose. We'll see. The days that followed were of intense preparation. Henry went to the clerk to register the intention to marry, found resistance from the notary, who was Victor's friend, but the law was clear. He had the right to marry whom he wanted. The documents were processed. Clara sewed her own wedding dress. Simple, white, with adjustments to accommodate the belly. Mrs. Higgins helped with the veil, a piece of antique lace that had belonged to her mother. Won't be a big wedding, said the cook, but it will be beautiful. It will be full of love, and that is what matters. The wedding was set for the last Saturday of February. Only family and close friends were invited. Henry didn't expect many people. The whole town condemned them. but some appeared, Tobias and his family, Mrs. Higgins and her children who came from other towns, Dr. Ambrose and his wife, some loyal ranch hands, a small group but significant. Victor didn't show up, sent a letter the day before informing that the petition was filed in court. Alleged Henry's temporary mental incapacity, manipulation, poor management of the ranch. Asked that the property be placed under guardianship pending full investigation. Henry read the letter and tore it up. Tomorrow, I marry Clara. Then I deal with Victor. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and beautiful, blue sky without clouds, gentle breeze, pleasant temperature. Henry wore the suit he used at the wedding with Eleanor. It wasn't disrespect, it was continuity, it was honor. He was certain Eleanor would approve. Clara was beautiful in the simple dress. Round belly evident, but that didn't matter. She glowed. Happiness radiated from her. Mrs. Higgins arranged wildflowers in her hair. "Ready," she said, emotional. "You are perfect, child." The ceremony was at the church, small and intimate. Father Sebastian conducted it with seriousness and respect. When the moment for vows came, Henry held Clara's hands and spoke from the heart. "I, Henry Vance, take you, Clara Miller, as my wife. I promise to love you, respect you, protect you all the days of my life. I promise to be a father to your child as if they were my blood. I promise to build a home full of love and joy with you. I promise never to make you feel less than the extraordinary woman you are. This I promise before God and these witnesses." Clara was crying. "I, Clara Miller, take you, Henry Vance, as my husband. I promise to love you, support you, honor you all the days of my life. I promise to transform your house into a home. I promise to heal your wounds as you healed mine. I promise to make you happy as you made me happy. This I promise before God and these witnesses." The priest blessed the union. "I declare you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." And Henry kissed with tenderness and passion, kissed with promise of a future, kissed like a man who finally found peace. Those present applauded, small group but big noise. Mrs. Higgins cried with joy. Tobias smiled proud. Dr. Ambrose nodded approval. The party was at the ranch, simple but joyful. Abundant food prepared by Mrs. Higgins. Guitar music played by one of the hands. Dancing, laughter, celebration. Henry and Clara danced slowly, carefully because of the belly, and didn't care about anything else in the world. At night, when everyone went home, they were alone for the first time as husband and wife. Henry carried Clara up the stairs, a traditional gesture that made her laugh. He took her to the master bedroom, the room that had been his and Eleanor's. Hesitated at the door. Clara understood. "Are you sure?" She asked softly. "We can use another room." "No." Henry entered. "This is our room now. Eleanor would understand. She would approve." He deposited Clara on the bed with care. That night was one of intimacy, discovery, deep connection. It was two hearts finally finding completion in one another. The following months brought challenges and joys. Victor proceeded with the lawsuit, but found more difficulty than expected. Henry hired a lawyer from Denver, a competent man who dismantled the allegations one by one. The ranch was well managed, the account books impeccable. There was no evidence of manipulation. The wedding was legal and legitimate. The judge, despite being a friend of Victor's father, couldn't ignore the facts. Dismissed the petition. Victor tried to appeal but was denied again. Finally, in April, he gave up. Showed up at the ranch one last time, defeated and bitter. "You won," he said to Henry, "but I don't forgive myself. And I won't forgive you for choosing this woman over my sister's memory." "I didn't choose over her memory," replied Henry calmly. "I chose to honor what she wanted for me. I chose to live. You should try to do the same instead of living in bitterness." Victor left and never came back. Years later, Henry learned the brother-in-law moved to New York. trying to start over far from bitter memories. On May 15th, 1939, at 7 in the morning, Clara went into labor. Dr. Ambrose was called immediately. Henry was terrified. The memories of the night Eleanor died returned with full force. He held Clara's hand, pale, trembling. "It won't happen again," she said between contractions. "I'll be fine. The baby will be fine." "You can't promise that." "But I promise, Henry." The labor lasted 7 hours. 7 hours of terror for Henry. He didn't leave the room. Held Clara's hand through every contraction, wiped sweat from her brow, whispered encouragement, prayed like he hadn't prayed in years, and at 2 in the afternoon, baby cries filled the house. "It's a girl," announced Dr. Ambrose, huge smile on his face. "Healthy and strong. Congratulations." Henry looked at the baby wrapped in a white sheet, tiny, pink, crying loud. Looked at Clara, exhausted but smiling. Looked at the two of them, his family, and broke down. Cried like he hadn't cried since Eleanor's funeral. But it wasn't tears of pain. It was tears of relief, of joy, of gratitude. "What shall we call her?" asked Clara. Henry thought. "Aurora," he said, "because she is a new beginning, new day, new life." "Aurora Vance," whispered Clara. "Perfect." The baby was registered as Aurora Vance, legitimate daughter of Henry and Clara Vance, legally, officially, without stigma or shame. Henry kept his promise. The first months with Aurora were of adaptation. Baby woke up at night, cried, demanded constant attention. Henry got up along with Clara, helped, learned, never had the chance to be a father before. Now embraced every moment. The town slowly accepted the new reality. Some never forgave the scandal. Mrs. Euphrasia and the group of church ladies continued turning their faces when Henry and Clara passed. But others softened, saw it was a real marriage, real love, real family. Saw Henry happy for the first time in years, and some, the kindest, recognized they had judged wrongly. Dr. Ambrose became a close friend, visited regularly, checked Aurora's health, talked with Henry about politics and ranching. Mrs. Higgins practically adopted Aurora as a granddaughter. Tobias taught Clara about horses and planting. The ranch prospered. Henry had renewed energy, invested in new cultivation techniques, bought more cattle, expanded operations. Clara managed the house with impressive efficiency. Together they were a strong team, and the love grew. It wasn't explosive passion of youth. It was mature love, deep, built on solid foundation of respect, trust, partnership. Love that had faced storms and come out stronger. Love that knew the value of commitment and sacrifice. True love. At Christmas of 1939, exactly 12 months after Henry found Clara on the road, they did something special. Prepared an abundant supper and invited people from town who had no family, widows, orphans, lonely workers, filled the main house with people needing warmth and company. Mrs. Higgins prepared a banquet. There was turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, salads, pies, sweets, a bountiful table that fed 20 people. After supper, Henry stood up to speak. "A year ago, I was alone in this house, empty inside, thinking there was no more reason to live. Then I found someone who needed help as much as I did, and by helping her, I helped myself." He looked at Clara holding Aurora. "I learned that it is in the act of giving that we receive. It is in the act of loving that we are loved. It is in the act of helping that we are healed." Henry looked around at the attentive faces. "That is why, from today on, this house will be open every Christmas for whoever needs it. No one should spend this date alone. No one should feel they have no place in the world. Come, you are welcome. This is our extended family." Those present applauded. Some cried. It was a simple gesture, but profoundly significant. It was transformation of pain into purpose. It was a legacy being born. Years passed. Aurora grew strong and healthy. At 2, she was a talkative and curious girl. At 3, she already followed her father through the fields. Henry adored her completely, no difference from what he would feel for a blood daughter. In 1941, Clara became pregnant again. This time Henry was anxious but not terrified. He trusted. The birth was smooth. A boy was born whom they called Gabriel. 2 years later came another girl, Helen. The main house that had been so empty filled with the noise of children. Laughter, games, small fights, big joys. Henry never imagined he would be so happy. Every day was a gift. Every moment with Clara and the children was a blessing. In 1944, 5 years after the wedding, Henry was in the field supervising harvest when Aurora, already 5, ran to him. "Daddy, Daddy, there are people at the house." He went back and found a young couple on the porch. Man thin and tired, woman pregnant, expression of despair on both. The scene was familiar. Henry heard the story. They had lost everything in a flood, had nowhere to stay, were desperate. Henry looked at Clara, who had come out to see who it was. She smiled, perfect understanding between them. He turned to the couple. "You can stay here as long as you need. We have a cabin available, work, food. You don't need to go through this alone." The gratitude on the couple's face was inexpressible, stayed 3 months, until they recovered and found their own place. When they left a promise never to forget the kindness. This became a pattern. Stone Creek Ranch gained a reputation as a place that helped. Over the years, dozens of people passed through there. Some stayed weeks, others months. All left with dignity restored, hope renewed, faith in humanity recovered. At Christmas of 1944, the supper gathered 40 people. The tradition had grown, became an expected event in the region. Even some of those who had condemned Henry and Clara years ago showed up now, ashamed but accepted without rancor. Mrs. Euphrasia never apologized formally, but appeared at Christmas bringing donations of food and clothes to distribute to the needy. It was her way of acknowledging she had been wrong. Henry accepted with grace. Victor never returned. But years later, when he died in New York, he left a letter for Henry. It was an apology, acknowledged he acted out of envy and bitterness, acknowledged that Henry made the right choice, asked for forgiveness he didn't deserve but hoped for. Henry read the letter and cried, forgave. Life was too short to carry grudges. In 1950, 11 years after the wedding, Henry woke up and found Clara on the porch watching the sunrise. He hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" "About how life is strange," she replied. 11 years ago I was dying of cold on a road. Without hope, without future, without anything. And today I have everything. Husband I love, 3 wonderful children, house full of life, purpose. How did this happen?" "It happened because you were brave," said Henry, turning her to face him. "Because you didn't give up. Because you believed you deserved more. It happened because you found me. Because you chose to help instead of ignore. Because you had a heart big enough to love again." Henry kissed her forehead. "I am a lucky man. Eleanor taught me what love was. You taught me it is possible to love again. Both made me better than I would be alone." "Do you think she would be happy?" asked Clara quietly. "Eleanor, I'm certain." Henry smiled. "She is watching from somewhere, smiling, satisfied, because I kept the promise I made, because I lived, because I loved, because I was happy." The sun rose completely, illuminating the golden fields, the White House, the family Henry and Clara built from the ashes of their pain. Aurora appeared at the door, 7 years old now, followed by Gabriel of 5 and Helen of 3. "Daddy, Mommy, let's have breakfast," called Aurora. "Coming, my daughter," replied Henry. He took Clara's hand and they went in together. The table was set. Mrs. Higgins, now 70 but still strong, was making pancakes. Tobias entered bringing fresh milk. The children sat down chatting. The house was alive with sound, smell, movement. Henry sat at the head of the table, looked around at his family, at the people he loved, at the life he had built, and felt deep gratitude. Gratitude for having found Clara on that frozen road in December. Gratitude for having had the courage to open his heart again. Gratitude for every day, every moment, every blessing. Life gave second chances to both. He took it, didn't waste it. Built something beautiful, something lasting, something significant. And on that sunny morning of 1950, Henry Vance, who once thought his life ended with Eleanor, realized it had only started anew. Different, but equally precious, equally loved. The widowed rancher who found an abandoned girl at Christmas did what any decent person would do, offered help. But what he didn't expect was that by saving her, he would save himself. That by giving love, he would receive love in return, multiplied. That by opening the doors of his house, he would open the doors of his heart. And the pregnant abandoned girl, who thought her life ended on that cold road, discovered that sometimes God closes doors only to open bigger windows, more beautiful, fuller of light. Discovered she deserved love, deserved dignity, deserved happiness. Discovered that the end of a story can be the beginning of another even more beautiful. Together, Henry and Clara proved that true love is born in the most unlikely places, that second chances exist, that it is possible to rebuild on ruins, that kindness generates kindness, that compassion transforms lives, that by giving the best of us to someone, we receive back more than we imagined possible. And Stone Creek Ranch, which almost died along with Eleanor, flourished again. Not as it was before, but as something new. Something built on love that conquered scandal, that overcame judgment, that defied conventions. Love that proved to be stronger than anything. Years later, when Aurora was already an adult and asked her father about how he met her mother, Henry told the whole story. The girl listened fascinated, and at the end asked, "Dad, do you regret stopping that day?" Henry looked at Clara, grey hair now, but still beautiful, still the woman he loved more than anything. Looked at the 3 children he raised, at the prosperous ranch, at the rich and full life he built, smiled. Regret? That was the best day of my life. The day I stopped just surviving and started living for real. The day I found my future lying on the side of a road. No, my daughter, I regret nothing. I would do it all again without hesitation. And thus ends the story of the widowed rancher who found an abandoned girl at Christmas. Story of love that was born of compassion, of family that was born of kindness, of legacy that was born of the desire to turn pain into purpose. Story that proves miracles happen, that second chances exist, that it is never too late to start over, that love, true and pure, always finds a way.